News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Alan Gilbreth at darkoakmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian. And to all our friends and neighbors down south, including our buddy Lynn Neal, the real deal, I want to wish you all a very happy National Mississippi Day.
Okay. National Mississippi Day. Does every state get their holiday, I guess? Or
I'd say so.
Mississippi is a unique place, Alan. I lived there for a while.
Unique is a good adjective.
Yeah. And, okay, cool. Well, we'll be showcasing that. I wonder if Lynn Neal had a hand in establishing that holiday. I wouldn't at all be surprised. The guy's got his hands in everything else. So,
and we have a lot of listeners there.
Yeah.
And speaking of people from down south, I also want to wish a happy, very belated birthday to Mark Twain.
Mark Twain. Okay, well, this will all come into play, I'm sure.
How?
As well, so, all right. So there you go. The holidays are abundant. We just finished Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving weekend. I wonder if everybody's out there, shopping, doing their thing. If you are out there shopping, we have a very relevant segment coming up. But in any case, if you want to get in touch with us, it's a good day to do it. Oops, sorry about that. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook at Tool Talk Radio. We've already got some activity there, Alan. It's funny, something we posted up there is, within 2 minutes, we're getting a reaction, which we kind of knew we would. I think this is going to be an interesting discussion. Well, let's see what we got here. I'm calling this a tool tale / Christmas shopping. I'm saying rethink your Christmas gift giving this year. I have anecdotal evidence and proof that tools make a great gift.
I'm not going to argue that one with you at all. I'm going to point out about a dozen things you need to go get right now.
Forget those romantic gifts or those other, things that'll fade away in a few weeks. This is where it's at when it comes to gift giving. In our great moments in building history, boy, are we going back. We're going back millennia. Somehow I don't think we've ever talked about the Parthenon on Tool
Talk
Talk
about
Radio.
both of them.
Yeah, talk about ancient history. And in that vein, Alan, it's interesting. I've been working on an old home. As I've said, I've got this old project. There are a lot of old homes in the Mid-South and really around the country. And boy, this is a dynamic change. When you get, there's a huge difference between a home built 30 years ago and 70 to 100 years ago.
Oh, yes.
It's like a whole other animal and stuff. And in some ways, not an improvement either. But,
no, some of them were bad ideas.
And with that in mind as well, we've got the temperatures finally dropped. It's starting to feel, we know winter is on the way. So we're going to talk a lot about winter proofing, I guess you would say, protecting your home and your pipes as well. And that's also going to tie in with Alan's Week in Review. So we got a lot coming at you. And as we said, we'd love to talk to you. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. But before we get to any of that, let's get to our must-have item of the week. And this is a custom job. Although I dare say anybody could do this,
yes.
Alan. But I suppose this is your work.
It is.
Tell people what you're holding up here.
A dear client of mine gifted me with marking flags, but they're not just regular red pieces of paper you tack onto the back of a board. This is got a full plastic grip, like a tie down.
Yeah.
Complete with a sewn-on red flag. It is about 18 inches in length, so it is hard to miss.
Well, it's a warning flag. It's like, and folks, if you go to the big box store, I don't know if everybody realized, I'd say probably the majority of people hauling stuff in the back of their pickup truck that's hanging out the back violate this rule. You're supposed to, I can't remember if it's like 2 feet. If you have something extending off your truck or your at least 2 feet, you're supposed to have a little flag dangling from it so it's unmistakable, because we've seen this when you're driving. Your point of view is if somebody's got a bunch of 2x4s sticking straight out of their pickup truck, visually you might totally miss it because you're looking straight at the end of it and everything. You're supposed to make this very easy for motorists to see. And also, how many times have you walked through the big box store parking lot and somebody's got some 2x8 16-footers that are hanging off the back of their, like, 6 feet. And if you're looking down, at the parking lot or at your phone, you're going to whack your head into them. So
Yes, you will.
one of our loyal Facebook friends, Jeanette, she said, I see so many folks hauling long loads in their pickups who don't put any kind of flag or towel on them. I almost hit one about a month ago. Yeah. Amen, sister. Yeah. She's right. So it's a great tool. It's nice to know you're conscientious enough to,
Well, I haul a lot of stuff. Last one was an 8-foot long butcher block counter.
Oh, yeah.
And that's only about $1,500 worth of wood. So, you really don't want somebody to accidentally clip the corner of that or bump into you or drop something on it, because that's really expensive to replace.
Well, that's a good point. So even if you're just, even if your motivation is selfish, hey, you don't want your damaged.
I don't want those goods damaged. I want you to know, do not hit me anymore.
If you're hauling a ladder, think of that. That you don't want that whack. Somebody hitting the back of that. So.
Oh no. There's lots of reasons why I want you to pay attention and leave my vehicle alone and go do something wherever else you're going to do it.
Exactly. So that's it. That's our must-have item of the week. And Max, I don't know that there's any need to lean into your holiday. We get it. It's out there on the table. It's Mississippi Day, and
but if we have any listeners from Mississippi, please do text us in at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling hotline. We'd love to know how you're celebrating.
901-683-0989.
Oh. And also just a little bit of a bait of the hook. If anyone has any good quotes by Mark Twain that are clean, we'd love to hear those too to celebrate the day.
Well, I guess what I want, one thing I don't think we've ever heard from, and I'm going to put this out to all the Mississippi listeners. If you have to contend with kudzu, and it's not just Mississippi, I know that kudzu is around there's other parts of the country that were foolish enough to invite this plant into their life, right, Alan?
Well, this time of year is a happy time of year because it's dying back.
Is it?
It dies back.
Or is it just growing slower?
No, it dies back. It comes, it all turns brown and all that good stuff and goes away. But kudzu has a very sordid history that I think we can touch on if you wish. Kudzu actually, which is all over the South, it's not just Mississippi, was actually a featured plant at a couple of the later World Fairs in after 1880.
It's a Japanese plant, right?
It is a little Japanese mountain plant that grows for a little while, then the snow kills it off, and it was never a real problem where it's from. But we took it from where it's from, and we came down, and actually the state of Mississippi was worried about the deforestation and erosion of their hills.
Right.
And they actually thought it was a good idea to go around. And I even met the guy who worked for the Department of Agriculture at that time.
Did you punch him?
No. But at the time, it was very, very elderly gentleman. This was quite a number of years ago. But I met him at a conference, and he was like, yeah, we thought it was a great idea. We had no idea that stuff taken out of its natural environment and moved way down here to this almost, Mississippi is almost subtropical. You get down around Biloxi.
The fertile, fertile landscape
the
of Mississippi.
landscape down there is just such a beautiful, it's such rich river enhanced territory down there. So yes, we're complimenting you that you have great dirt there in Mississippi.
Oh,
Grow lots of good stuff. But unfortunately, kudzu is one of them. And all right, if you are from up north, picture, if you would, a really invasive grapevine that can grow up to 18 inches a day.
Yeah, don't bring this stuff to your house.
Yeah, you really.
And don't go, oh, this is nice. I'm going to grow it up the trellis along the side of my house.
No, it'll eat your house.
It'll be like a monster movie.
That's what I'm seeing right now. I'm looking at all these videos, and it's like the kudzu is eating the homes and eating the forest. It's like a thing. It's like a monster.
Oh, yeah. If you go through, I happen to know, I used to work in the Mississippi Delta. You go to some of these little quiet back road places, and you will literally see these barns that have been consumed by kudzu.
Completely covered.
Right.
Completely covered. You'll see entire trees disappear under kudzu.
Now, to play the devil's advocate, is there any benefit to it?
Kudzu is actually a decent biofuel source. It grows rapidly, so if you're using it as a product, let's face it, it renews quickly. It is, as a technicality, edible.
I was about to say people eat kudzu.
Yeah, as a technicality, is an edible source. So I think the real problem with kudzu is we moved it from its native environment, we made it an invasive species, and we haven't capitalized on it as well as we should have.
Unleash the power of kudzu.
Yeah, exactly. Make it, instead of it being your enemy, make it your friend. That's the way of the world. Hey, you're listening to Tool Talk Radio. Speaking of the way of the world, the Christmas season is upon us, and we want to, in our Tool Tales, we want you to rethink your Christmas gift giving.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Good news, everyone! I'm in terrible pain.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
That's one of those kudzu engineers. Anyway, welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989, especially if you've got any good Mark Twain quotes that have inspired you over the years. Today is his birthday, and today is National Mississippi Day, which is a pretty self-explanatory holiday. However, we've got Mississippi listeners, so we'd love to hear from you today. What is life like in Mississippi? We'd love to know. What are your home improvement challenges going on down there as well? Also, I just want to say a quick thing, because this is actually very relevant to Tool Talk Radio. I just want to mention a little later, we're just going to do a very small recap of the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention, because we saw a lot of Tool Talk Radio listeners out there. And I think, Alan, there is an overlapping set of skills that I dare say the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention would not exist if it wasn't for our carpentry and home improvement skills.
That is true.
I think there is a very big tie-in, and so we're going to talk about overlapping skill sets in terms of the relevance of being able to work with your hands and what that can translate to, including writing, I even dare say. So, but we'll get to that later. All right, Max, let's shift gears here.
And now, Tool Tales with Tool Talk Radio.
For lack of a better term, we're calling this. No, this is actually Tool Tale. This is an ongoing Tool Tale. If you've been listening to Tool Talk for any number of months, you know that. Let's just be honest. The longer you know somebody, it's less about when a holiday comes around, it's less about sentimental gifts, and it's more about what does this person actually want. So for Mother's Day this year, I bought my wife a reciprocating saw. A pretty good one too, Alan. Battery powered, lots of torque. It's even got a little light at the end that lights up.
Oh yeah,
that makes a difference. Even in the daytime, that makes a difference if you're reaching into shadowy areas. And I bought her about 3 or 4 of those big pruning blades, like the ones that could literally cut through a tree limb.
Yeah.
And boy, has she been cutting through tree limbs. So,
all right. Well, all right. Let me point out. You live semi in a forest.
Yeah, in East Memphis, Memphis forest.
Let's just be honest. You have 2 lots, one of which is wild. I'm surprised you don't have deer and wolves back there.
We probably
You might have. Of your better half is definitely more exterior oriented than you are.
Okay, in fairness, she wasn't always this way.
That's true.
I don't know where this came. This
Well-
is the last 3 years. All of a sudden, she's outside constantly. Like, that's all she wants to do.
All right, I'm going to put it down to the proper tool changes people.
Bingo. There you go.
It really does. Let's be horribly honest. If there's something you hate doing around the house, I guarantee it is because you are doing it with the wrong tool.
Right.
The minute you have the proper tool for the proper job, it totally changes your outlook about any of this.
Did
So
you
the
have-
moral of the story is just weaponize your wives.
Well, just don't just keep an open view. They may really want a cool tool.
All right, now I will go
or that
back-
maybe they don't know it until you get it for them.
Again, I do a lot of taking people shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hilarious.
I mean, you did for me.
I did. I'm turn around and look at Max and go, you know what? Scott J. Carroll and I took you shopping, and we did the full-on tour of a hardware big box store. And you had about 300 questions. You really did. You're nodding over there sagely, but you had question after question after question because, let's face it, there's a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
There is a ton of stuff. And so, like, you hate yard work. Well, what do you hate about yard work? Well, I can't handle this stupid bush. All right, well, why can't you handle the bush? Well, I'm out here with my samurai sword trying to, all right, this is not going to work.
Right.
Let's get the proper tool to do the job. The minute you have the proper tool to do the proper job, it's almost revenge time.
Yeah. Well, let me paint a picture for everybody. So we had so we live on a busy corner, as I said. However, we're really blessed. We have almost an acre of property, and it's a really nice yard. It's almost been too much for me to handle, though. And over the years, mostly I did all the yard work. And in the very back, there's about a run of about, it's 150 feet by about 30 feet or 40 feet deep, and it is just totally overgrown. It's overgrown with bushes, privet, trees, everything. And it was just, and to be honest, when I would cut limbs, if there was like bushes or something, I just chucked them back there and let them disintegrate. So I was compounding the problem. Okay, but then here's the thing. So 3 or 4 years ago, my wife got a cat, Victor.
Right.
And we had a cat about 10 years ago. And unfortunately, like I said, we live on a busy corner, and we used to let Mallory, that was her name, roam free, and she got hit by a car. And we never want that to happen again. So she's kind of protective. So she only lets Victor be in the backyard when she's out with him.
Right.
And what would happen is he would run into the first place. Where's he going to go? Into into the
thicket,
where it's hard to grab him. And so she had motivation immediately to clear this out. I'm not complaining.
Okay.
So for Mother's Day, I bought her a Sawzall. Like I said, I bought her a really good one. And bit by bit, she has now cleared that entire run away. She's broken it down to where she's it looks great. I mean, it's like a Zen walking path back there now. And she's very excited. She's going to put a little bench back there. She wants to put a stone feature. This is her new place of this is her new hangout and everything.
Okay.
And I submit that I think the Sawzall was the perfect gift, not just because it's a great tool for this, but the Sawzall, we've talked about tools in the past that give you instant results.
Yes.
There is nothing more exciting that you've got some giant bush looking you in the face, and in 5 minutes, that thing is completely disintegrated and laying on the ground. And Sawzalls, when you use the correct blade, those babies, they cut.
Yes, they do.
And psychologically, it's exciting, and so maybe that's what's going on here.
All right, it's less intimidating than a chainsaw.
Yeah, it's as basic as you can get,
And
literally.
It is all a reciprocating saw does is move a blade back and forth.
Right.
But if you're like, all right, you've got an old piece of furniture, but the thought of sitting there for the next 8 days of your life with a piece of sandpaper in your hand is just the worst thought in your mind. The minute you discover one of those cute little battery-powered orbital sanders.
With a dust collection bag.
Oh, with a little dust bag so it
Yeah.
doesn't make a huge mess. Suddenly, you eyeball something different when you feel good about the tools you've got.
You want it. You want to get out there and start sanding.
It's a new
Put it out
toy.
in the backyard. Just start sanding away.
Well, look at it this way. It's a new toy and you want to play. And in this case, like you said, with the reciprocating saw and the proper blade, you get such instant results. You really do.
Right.
I mean, it is just so satisfying.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, okay, well, that was easy. And you've even upgraded to a battery-powered lawnmower.
Yeah, I love that thing.
So you're not out there. And for a lot of people, that yanking on the cord and the pulling and the yanking and all, people don't want to do that.
And the gas and oil
and the gas
going
and
bad
the oil
and
and the
getting water.
fumes and the. All right, you now click a battery onto the unit, you press a button, and results happen immediately.
You can literally talk on your phone while you're cutting the grass, too. I mean, it's that quiet. It's
Okay,
like,
so
yeah.
the tools to the trade have changed. And I'll pick on another close friend of mine that had always wanted a fire feature, had always wanted a fire pit.
Right.
One load of cinder blocks later, a little bit of sand, and a good level, and suddenly she has a beautiful fire pit that she's used now for 2 or 3 years.
And that's another one of those instant things. You had a pile of cinder blocks. Now you have a fire pit and everything. So yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. A drill, those are handy, those are good, those are necessary.
Right.
But I feel like if you're trying to get somebody interested in tools, you got to give them that instant satisfaction.
Now, I'm going to pick on the drill for a second because there's 50 different sizes of drills.
Yeah.
Consider who's going to be using it because there are everything from very lightweight ones, because you have loved making fun of my 12-volt drills forever.
Well, that's true.
Until you're working above your head on a ceiling and that 5-pound drill you got now no longer seems so attractive.
Well,
And my
that's a good
little
point.
2-pound drill is now the bomb. So, again, the proper tool to the proper job. And, when we come back, we're going to unpack real Christmas shopping.
Right.
Because right now is just the biggest bonzer time of the year to find literally anything and everything at a big box store.
Well, it's funny you say that because I think I've mentioned this on the air before too. We bought a refrigerator recently, and we saved $800. It was is it the Labor Day sale? The woman at the big box store told me, she said, "Look, if you're gonna buy an appliance or something or some tools or whatever, do it on Black Friday." Or, you say that, but usually it's the whole weekend.
Oh, yeah.
You probably have all
It's-
weekend and even
yeah.
beyond for that sale. Or do it on Labor Day. And, well, hey, we're in the middle of Black Friday weekend, so don't wait. Don't get out there to the shopping mall. Get to the big box store.
Oh,
Get
yeah.
your
We got
tools.
stuff to talk
Get your
about.
appliances, and that's what we're going to talk about when we come back. And I do have one small follow-up question with Alan about what to do with all the soil in the backyard now. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
You're making a...
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Okay, you know what? Shut up.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
I double tapped.
Yeah, a little sloppy, Max. And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. A couple of people have already chimed in. We're going to get to those people soon. Probably not one of them. It sounds like, we want family-friendly texts. That's why I like the text line, Alan. You can filter out the inappropriate comments. But we do have some appropriate comments we're going to get to. If you're just tuning in, I was just celebrating the fact that this Sawzall that I gave to my wife back for Mother's Day is really reaping rewards. She's having fun. I mean, she's out there clearing the yard. She's done a lot of great work, and she cleared out a section of our yard that for more or less was a overgrown, forested, bushes, weeds, everything. She's cleared out. It's about 30 feet by 150 feet. Well, my question before we move along, Alan, is what do we do with this soil? Some of this soil, you walk in there, you can. It just look. It's got to be the most fertile soil in
it's
our yard,
beautiful.
right? I mean, it's had nutrients. It's got moles. Do moles help the soil? Do they?
They don't hurt it. They aerate pretty good.
So what is the maximum use? We're not going to dig up the whole yard, but we thought, why don't we take advantage of this really rich soil? So what should we do with it?
All right, well, the thing that happens when you begin cleaning up areas like that, you'll always wind up with something excess.
Right.
Some excess dirt or whatever. And I'm going to give you the penultimate use for that.
Okay.
Build you a raised bed.
Oh, I bet she'd like that because she's wanting to
and
grow
grow
stuff.
you some strawberries or something fabulous in it. You can buy pre-made forms. You can, a raised bed is just a whole new ball of wax for you. And it's the perfect place to put that kind of excess.
Because we've talked about growing some like rosemary or growing some whatever.
A good herb bed will make your food taste so much better.
And you know what's cool about that? We could strategically place we got plenty of space in our yard.
Yep.
So we could maybe make it more of a decorative element too.
Absolutely.
And I like that it's a controlled thing. So you're talking, maybe something, 10 feet by 10 feet across or,
It doesn't even have to be that big.
Okay.
But yeah, just, or look at doing a series of raised beds if you've got plenty of soil.
We do. Maybe we need you to come by and do one of your gardening consultations.
We can do that.
All right. Well, we'll keep you posted on these developments. And I suppose I should take some video of this. Maybe I'll do that next week and then
Need
a
some
little
pictures.
walking trail. But it's
need
really
some
nice.
here.
So all the result of a $200 Sawzall. All right. I'm sorry, reciprocating saw. Let's shift gears, Max. So we've had some responses to our conversation this morning.
We said kudzu.
Yeah, trigger.
That's a trigger word. Let's get started with Clay.
Okay.
3 years ago in winter, I bought 55 acres of rural land south of Bolivar.
Wow.
I didn't realize till next spring half was covered in kudzu. I got after it with RM43 and did 6 to 8 sprays each spring through fall. Now there is only a sprig here and there. It is controllable, but you have to be dedicated to saving your property.
Okay, wait. What is he spraying on there, Alan?
Oh, he's using he's actually using the proper weed control on that.
What is it? Salt, basically, or
it is actually it's designed to prevent kudzu from processing its sugars. If you actually want to know, I love the fact that he bought it in winter.
I was about to say,
and had no idea what he was about to get into.
There's a real estate lesson there. Don't buy 55 acres of property in Mississippi in the winter.
Well, that's south of Bolivar. That's a little north of here, Joe.
Oh, Bolivar, Tennessee. I didn't know they had kudzu.
Yeah.
I guess anybody can bring
kudzu.
it in.
Oh, we got kudzu.
Okay.
Fantastic. I'm glad he got after it.
And he did it, or he didn't hit it with Roundup and whatever.
Well, he did hit it with an appropriate herbicide. However, he is controlling it properly.
Okay, right on. Good job, Clay.
And next one is Alex.
Okay.
Did a clearing of kudzu a few years ago on the tree line in our backyard. Its main root was running on the ground. It was the size of your bicep.
Yes.
It looks the same now from growing back. So hard to kill.
It is. It is.
So cutting at it is useless. It's like a mutant from
it's
a
like the
1950s monster movie.
Well, if it's got good, rich soil, and once again, I'll compliment Mississippi for having really good, rich soil.
Yeah.
If it's got good, rich soil, it can actually grow somewhere between a foot and 18 inches a day. That means you can honestly sit there and watch it grow.
I feel like I watched on YouTube a time-lapse video.
Yeah.
Literally just one day, like you said, where you could see it creeping.
Yeah.
And gosh, that's insane when you think about that growth.
In the improving day of biomass biofuels, kudzu may turn from being one of our arch enemies into one of our best friends. In the simple fact that kudzu so efficiently creates biomass so that when you're making biomass-based fuels, kudzu could be your buddy.
That was the surprise when you said that. But then again, I suppose,
If
you
it's,
can extract.
if it's biomass,
Right.
it can deteriorate. It can also be fermented and other stuff. So yes, biofuel can be extracted from kudzu.
All right, Alex and Clay, thanks for those proper texts. We're not even going to acknowledge the other one.
Yeah,
We got a
yeah.
pretty rotten text.
Let
and
it
we're not
go,
putting it on
Joe.
the air.
Let it go.
Well, I'm reiterating. We love to hear from your tasteful texts, but
Yes.
let's shift gears though. Not shift gears. Let's refocus here. We're talking. Hey, this is a great weekend to get out and still do some shopping.
Oh, yes.
The sales usually are extended through the weekend. I mean, they don't just it's not just Friday that you get
Correct.
the sale. So, but while everybody's focusing on clothes and the shopping malls and everything, don't overlook your opportunities at the big box store. Like
Yeah.
I said,
Well,
that may be the place for you.
Of every hardware store on the planet, whether you're a big box or a smaller chain or even a mom and pop, everybody has some kind of Christmas special, some kind of bundle for the person looking to get into the battery systems. I tell everybody, don't buy one of this brand and one of that brand and one of that brand. Right now is a great time to go investigate. Pick the brand you're going to be loyal to because that battery will now work on another 100 different tools.
Right.
So, and the batteries are actually now the main expense compared to the tools.
Oh yeah.
The battery's $100, the tool is 70. Well, if that battery works on 3 different tools, also right now is usually they have bundles of batteries for amazing prices.
You do want extra batteries. Let's just say that.
You need
if you
some
have
extra
you
batteries.
don't have just one battery. And there's those starter kits. I told you about that starter kit I got, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, where it came with a reciprocating saw, 2 drills, a battery, a flashlight, and one other thing for $139. I mean, it's almost like it's almost like the drug dealer giving you the first one for free because they know you're going to come back and buy more, which it worked for me. I mean, it's a great set. So
now I'm going to throw in a specific item that I think every house needs to have.
Okay.
If you have a battery system, and it really doesn't matter whose, of every one of the brands now are making power inverters.
You brought one of those in as a must-have item, but let's read.
I got to tell you, especially getting into winter where we're going to have some, winter weather, a power inverter is, all right, we're not going to get into electrical theory, but we're just going to leave it as, trust me, it actually works. A power inverter will take your battery and its wattage, and it will invert the voltage so that you can plug a normal everyday 120 plug item into it. They also come with USB plugs so you can charge your phone and your other USB items. And this gives you a certain number of hours of safety in the event you have a power outage.
I would say if you had 4 or 5 of these, which, why not have 4 or 5 of these in the house, always charged and ready to go. If you have a power, you could probably run a TV. You could run a fan if it's the summer.
Oh.
You could charge your phone. You could have at least some lights, use sparingly. You're probably not going to be able to run your refrigerator for very long, but,
Well, so
at least it gives you something where you're not just in pitch darkness. So,
well, yeah, but, the fact that, the power inverter ranks right up there with me to the reciprocating saw for the ability to change your life.
yeah, it's amazing what a difference it makes.
Because now I can take one battery out of my toolkit, pop it into this thing, and while I'm on location for hours and hours and hours, I can now use my home computer for far longer than the hour or two the computer battery lasts.
That's true.
And now I got computer all day long, or your Wi-Fi, or whatever it is you want to keep going. Now, the other thing I'm going to throw out are kits.
Oh, yeah.
They have got amazing kits. And, for especially a new person just moving out on their own, you will always need a pair of pliers. You will always need a hammer. You will always need a pair of scissors.
Right.
And you can buy these kits, and they're incredibly cheap for everything they have in them.
Yeah. And especially if you've got somebody that they're the, your young homeowner getting out in the world for the first time. Go, okay, great. It's nice to buy them a nice sentimental housewarming gift or, but you know what? The nuts and bolts, the ones that are going to last and the ones you're going to remember are these more practical gifts. And actually, they could be sentimental. Who says a circular saw can't be a sentimental gift?
Mine even has a name.
Exactly. All right. We'll have a few parting thoughts about that when we come up. And also, hey, Alan, it's getting cold out there. We're going to talk about some of the ups and downs of owning an old home and how to keep it properly insulated.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
I'm describing a person, not something complicated like a wooden sailing ship or proper dovetail technique.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning. Here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We also invite you to join the Tool Talk Radio Facebook community. Go to Facebook and go to @Tool Talk Radio and join the conversation over there. Thanks to everybody who's been chiming in on our posts, which we'll address throughout the show. Max, before we move along, you said we have another texter. Is that right? So
They were talking about the benefits of goats are a very good cut cleaner.
Well, we should mention, if you're just tuning in, we've been talking about the menace of kudzu
Depends on how you
in the
define
wrong
menace.
context. I mean, if you're using it as a biofuel, or if you are, if somebody that likes to eat kudzu, or who knows, maybe you have a good use for kudzu.
Or to quote Will Turner, with a little leverage and the proper application of strength.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that makes sense, sort of, Max.
However,
but,
goats love some kudzu.
goats can eat poison ivy. Goats can clear it out.
I-
Well, which is why we now have business, like actual businesses, renting goats.
Yes,
a
yes.
goat rental.
Absolutely. And you talk about a great way of clearing some property.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, if you're going to rent a goat party, it's actually what they're called. You can go rent a goat party, and if you can fence the area so the goats won't disappear into the woods,
Right.
if you can secure the area, you can rent basically as many goats as it takes to do the job, and they will wipe out, Joe, as you said, everything.
We happen to have a goat rental company here in the Mid-South, and I talked to the owners, and they said they'll bring the fencing. They bring it all. You basically sit back and enjoy it, and you can turn your TV off and just look out the back window at the goats while they're clearing out your yard.
Goats are hilarious.
Yeah.
And so they'll turn all of your waste into, cute little pellets that refertilized your ground.
Right, exactly. So, okay, very good. That's a good point. And what was the listener? 0483?
Yeah, anonymous texter 0483.
Okay, well,
Yep.
thank you, anonymous texter.
We love us some goats.
So, Alan, as people that have been listening know, I'm on the finishing touches of this huge project I've been working on, and now I'm at a point where basically we have so there's a really cool little window. It's a really charming space. This has got to be the coolest laundry room in the Mid-South that I'm working on. It's got a brick wall. There is a one of those little square windows like you might see in a British cottage somewhere out there. You open it's up. It's the bottom of the window is like 5 feet up. So you open it and it kind of connects these areas. Well, there's a door, there's a window and a door. These used to be on the outside of the home, and now they're on the inside of this laundry room. So it's time to clean them up. So what I've been doing is there's probably, who knows, 20 layers of paint on this. This house was built in 1929. And, but what I'm finding is that, for one thing, what I'm finding is there's a lot of paint that I have to scrape off. The caulk over the years, whoever did the caulking didn't do a very good job. It's very messy, so I'm taking that off.
Right.
I'm scraping it. Well, beneath the layer of the caulk, I've got about 3 questions for you. One of them is, so I got the caulk. I got rid of the caulk. Now I'm getting rid of the layer beneath it, and I'm telling you, Alan, I think this is like tar. I'm having to take it out with a hammer and a chisel, and it is, it's black and sticky. It's got to
Right.
be tar. I didn't know they used tar, but then again, I don't think caulk was invented till the 30s. Is that right? So,
Well, I think what you're looking at is what we used to call pitch.
okay. What's the difference? Because we've heard of pitch, but what's the difference between pitch and tar?
Well, pitch is a type of tar. Originally, it's they call it a viscoelastic polymer.
Okay.
If you'll believe that, it is a petroleum based. It's coal tar,
Yeah.
and historically, pitch was used to seal boats.
Right.
And it was pliable, and it lasted pretty much forever.
It's not
really-
pliable now, but it's held up.
yeah,
It is.
yeah.
It is not budged. I mean, it's,
And we run into that periodically. I run into odd constructions based on what somebody did for a living when they built the house.
right.
And well, honestly, I worked on one house where obviously this person had access to a lot of red cedar lumber. So instead of boxing things out, they just stacked it full of red cedar and nailed it all together.
They had, probably you're right.
Now-
They had access to a.
The house was bulletproof. It was definitely overbuilt. In your case, somebody had access to probably marine pitch, or may have even been from overseas, from England, where you glaze windows
Right.
to seal them and keep the draft out. So yeah, you could very easily be running into what we call pitch.
Here's why I marvel about this whole thing. So the back of this house, back when it was outside, I mean this window and this door, they were it faced west. There was
Right.
literally no protection. This thing was just on a exposed brick wall, and after almost 100 years, there was no rotted wood. The windows were solid. The trim was protected, and I mean, you can't help but marvel at that. It's like, wow, this thing is still intact after all. There's all these layers of paint. The one thing that's funny when you're working on something like this is as you're stripping the paint, at some point, if you have a home that's 70 or 80 years, at some point you hit this weird green that seems like it was used on everything. You know what I mean? It was used in our
yeah.
kitchens. It was used
Yeah.
was that a 50s color?
Yeah, avocado green. Avocado green started at the end of World War II
What is
and
wrong
lasted
with it? Yeah.
through about 1980.
Isn't that something?
Harvest gold and avocado green
Right.
were just two amazing colors. Well, and that is because, avocado green was a callback to the vibrant green of like the 1880s, 1890s, but it was so green because it had like a really horrible poison in it.
Oh.
I think it was like arsenic
It turned
that
green.
made it the green so good.
Okay.
We had paint that looked so shiny because it had a little lead in it.
Well, the thing is, when and
Yeah.
we've got friends that they specialize in mid-century modern homes. I feel like that was a 50s thing, like the avocado green countertop and the avocado green metal cabinets in your kitchen or
And
something.
wait till you hit that orange shag carpet.
Right.
Yeah, that's when you know you've really gotten into the 60s.
So it was a lot of work getting it scraped and
Yes.
removing all of that. However, like I said, if its job was to keep the water out, it
Yes.
worked with flying colors. But here's the thing. Okay, so there's a lot to be said with the craftsmanship of some of the older homes. However, it seems to me homes like my home's a perfect example. It's 72 years old. Our walls are not very well insulated, if they're even insulated at all. I don't know. And this homeowner told me the same thing. He said it's drafty. It's not very well insulated. So I wanted to shift a little because a lot of people here in the Mid-South live in an older home and they probably deal with the drafts and stuff. Well, short of most people are probably not going to just rip out all of their plaster walls and everything and insulate, but what are some we've got a little checklist here of things you could do to at least improve the insulation on your home in a situation. The first place I went to is your outlets.
Right.
What do you think of that? Like any outlet facing an exterior wall and even an interior wall, because think of it this way. They make those little foam insulation pads you can put on there. Well, if you have wires coming from the attic there's probably a hole there, and then it probably leads to into the wall and things like that.
Well, and the other
that's one of them.
Yeah, and one of the problems is fire caulking is kind of a new idea, aka putting something in that hole in the attic going down into your wall.
Right.
Is only been in the last 5 to 10 years that we've been doing that. And it actually only became a standard just within the last 5 years.
Yeah, because you said that you can have that around, high voltage outlets, or you have it around something heat. And so it serves the purpose of preventing fire from spreading, but also keeping the drafts out.
The big thing is it stops a lot of air.
Right.
But also stops a lot of bugs because you don't have the little highway for them anymore. The one thing I will start with is your own skin. If you feel a draft coming off of something, do you have old single pane windows?
Yeah.
If you do, you probably need to do something about that.
Yeah, I have that on my list here too. So we're gonna have some of that coming up. We're gonna carry that over into hour 2 of Tool Talk Radio, and of course we're gonna get to our great moments in history, building history. We got a lot to get to, so stay buckled in, everybody. It's coming up here on Tool Talk Radio.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And we also invite you to follow us on Facebook. Go to @Tool Talk Radio and join the Tool Talk Radio community over on Facebook. If you're just tuning in, we've been talking, among other things, about older homes and the menace of kudzu. Somehow kudzu is getting us a lot of mileage, Alan. But, today is National Mississippi Day, and it's also Mark Twain's birthday. So our thoughts are going down to our friends in Mississippi and the challenges they face, and kudzu is right up there at the top of it. One of our texters, Clay, said that he's got 55 acres of property, and he spent years battling kudzu, and he feels like he's finally ahead of the game. But also, we're talking about some of the older homes we've dealt with, because here in the Mid-South, there is no shortage of homes that are, when I say older, I'm going to say 70 years or older, because once you get into the 60s, we don't talk about the 70s, but, the modern homes have different challenges than we're talking about. One thing, though, that's inescapable is older homes were not very well insulated. Let's just be honest. They were drafty. They still are in many cases. And so short of just ripping the walls out and re-insulating everything and tearing the windows out and starting from scratch, we're just maybe throwing out some ideas of how to improve, at least maybe cut down on the drafts and improve on the insulation. And you said, Max, somebody texted in right on point with that, right?
It's Agent 732, surprisingly.
Oh, haven't heard from the agent in a while. Okay.
Well, he said, what if I have depression glass in my single pane window and don't want to get rid of it?
Okay, tell me what a depression glass is, because I think I've heard of it. But
coming out of actually going into World War I, machine rolled glass began being made, and as techniques have changed over the years, the actual finished appearance of the glass has also changed. So the time period he's talking about is in the 20s and 30s. Yeah. And the glass made at that time does have a certain finish and look to it. And if you put in modern glass, it just doesn't look the same.
Right.
Visibly, you can look at it and go, all right, that's the new pane, because all the others have a certain look to them. That is where we're going to get into the word glazing.
Bingo.
And that's not something a lot of modern people, especially have new double pane, double hung, fantastic windows. Glazing is just not a topic you get into. Glazing is where you're going to go in and use a glazing compound, And
that takes forever to dry. So
it does.
Use it in warmer weather if you can. Don't wait till it's 20 below zero to.
Well, it has to. You need to glaze above 50 degrees so the chemical process can take place. And glazing used to be a linseed oil mixture, and now there's many different types these days. And happily, a wide variety of companies make glazing compounds.
Right.
And generally what you're going to do is go around and replace the glazing around the window pane, and that will stop a lot of the draft that comes through it.
It doesn't feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me in a lot of situations, it's not like you can feel air. Like you might walk up next to a window. It's not like you necessarily feel a breeze, but the accumulated, you could say, breaches. If you've got 30 little tiny breaches in that glaze, you're going to have noticed that.
Oh, that's just a blast of cold air coming in. One thing I love to do, and again, it's one of my favorite tools, is the laser thermometer.
Oh, those sound cool. Can you get those at a big box store?
Oh yeah. They're on sale right now, like $29.99.
There you go.
You pop a battery in it. It shoots a little red dot out on the wall or wherever you aimed it at, and it automatically puts the temperature, boop, right there on the screen. And that is a great way of checking to see. I normally use it to find if an electrical outlet is too hot.
Right.
I normally use it, all year long, checking electrical and that kind of stuff. However, during the winter, when the drafts are starting to kick up, it is a great way of finding out, do you have a draft?
Well, and here's the other thing, too. So with old Windows, Agent 732, I'm sure you know, that especially if you have where it opens and closes, if it's not just a fixed window, well, that weather stripping in there can fail very easily. And plus, the rails that the window's going up and down in, those can fail, or they could, and maybe they're not failing, but there's air coming through there. I would say, this is sort of the butcher. I don't know. This isn't the elegant solution, but it works. Get yourself some clear packing tape for those 2 months a year here in the Mid-South where it's really cold. And if you just tape up those edges, it's amazing what a difference that makes. I know that clear plastic works great, but some people don't want to look at that. Some people don't want that on their window. But the little cheat you could do is things like that.
The trick is stop the airflow.
It makes a huge difference.
And there are
that little
of
draft.
Right.
If you stop that, it makes a big.
Makes a big difference. Another one is door sweeps.
Oh yeah.
They don't look like they do much, but actually anything that breaks up that airflow makes a difference.
Well, here's the fun thing about door sweeps now. If you get on, I don't know, Etsy, or you get on some of these websites, now they have fun ones. They have a door sweep. It's all full of those whatever it looks like a stuffed animal. It looks like a dog sleeping by your door or something.
Yes.
And so you sweep it open, and boy, does that keep out the draft, man.
It makes a huge difference. Another one is the chimney flue.
Okay, we don't talk enough about that.
All right,
maybe it's just open, and you're letting all
you mentioned Etsy, and that's why I just remembered. Somebody was showing me a cute little hook that went up into the eye of your chimney flue door control that hung down, and that way you put that in when you close the flue, so you could see the little bunny or whatever hanging at the end of the thing, so you knew your flue was closed. And when you didn't see the bunny, you knew your flue was open.
Well, I got a question about that because we've decided. I think I told you. We have a great fireplace that we never use, and we said this is the year we're going to get it. We're going to clean it. We're going to do whatever we need to do. We'll probably change the grill so we can use it this year. But the flue has always been a little bit of a mystery to me. What is holding? Okay, if the flue is closed, what is it? Just metal against brick or metal against? So how airtight could that actually be? It's not. So it's like,
but it's better.
So maybe you want a grate that's like a glass one that keeps the draft out. Or something.
That is why the cinder screens are such a big thing, where people put the glass face on it, close the doors. That holds that cold air inside of there. And again, it breaks up the airflow.
Okay, that's what I wondered about. So, okay, because I did wonder about that. That just seems like an obvious place of
Well, but when you
drafts.
open the flue or you leave the flue open year long, then anything that falls down the chimney can fall into your house.
Right. So it's just a straight
and it's just
shot.
air. It's just air billowing into your house. Or worse, people forget this, because we have of positive pressure air. Now, what do I mean by that? That means when you turn on your air conditioning, the blower is blowing air into your home.
Right.
That is positive pressure. Well, where does that air go?
Yeah.
Your home just doesn't keep inflating like a balloon.
Right. It's
The
got a
air
release.
escapes.
Right.
Right. It escapes through, and any place it can escape is a leak. Well, one of the places where that air pressure escapes, taking your heat with you, is your chimney flue.
Okay. There you go.
So there's a reason to close the flue if you're not using the fireplace.
I got a question. So, okay, now, if you, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm just throwing this out at you. So let's suppose, okay, we've got our heating ducts. Okay, well, we've got, let's say we have an older home, we have vents in the ceiling or in the upper wall or something. Well, I've seen where the vents are maybe loose. Maybe there's a half-inch gap. They're just not sitting tight against the wall. Okay, well, to my way of thinking, that's a draft too, right? I mean, because we have the duct coming into the vent, but that area around the edge, if it's not snugged up tight against the wall, that's another, especially if it's up against the attic, right?
You are 100% correct.
So your vents can be a draft.
The worst one I ever found was a vent that had fallen loose into the wall, and we found it with the thermometer because that one spot in the wall in this very hot room was nice and cool.
Yep, exactly. And on that same note, if you've got those pull-down stairs for your attic, or just even sometimes for attics, there's literally just a little square opening with a piece of plywood. Make sure there's weather stripping, usually, I don't know, the foam stuff and all that. But and if you really want to go nuclear and have the full option, I've seen people that they have entire kits that when you get up to the attic, that pull-down stair, it is fully enclosed and fully insulated, and it makes a huge difference. That is a huge draft spot. So.
It is.
There's all sorts of, but I like Alan's idea of getting yourself a laser thermometer because, like I said, walking through the home isn't necessarily going to give you the answers you want. So, but we hope those are helpful, because if you have an old home, it's an uphill battle keeping it warm in the winter. Hey, speaking of, well, no, I guess this isn't warm in the winter, but when we come back on our great moments in building history, we're going to talk about a structure 2,500 years old. One of the most famous structures in the world, the Parthenon in Greece.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Was that toilet always next to the refrigerator?
Ned, you ever try lugging the toilet up a flight of stairs?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. Especially if you live in Mississippi. Today is a National Mississippi Day. And who would have thought Kudzu became the... you never know what topic is going to dominate the text line, but hey, whatever it is. So in a minute, we are going to get to our discussion of the Parthenon and our great moments in building history. Before we do that, though, we want to talk about our good buddy Larry Brown with Brown Refrigeration. We love Brown Refrigeration. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes there are institutions that are so... You could almost call them bedrock institutions. And here in the Mid-South, we have several of them. But when it comes to your HVAC needs, there is a company. It is rock solid. It has a great business culture. They've been doing this for decades. We're approaching the 50-year anniversary of Brown Refrigeration. And there's a reason they're still going strong, because they have a great business culture. They always work with the latest technology, because HVAC technology is ever changing, and we shouldn't say just HVAC technology. We're talking about air purifying technology, which is what they're all about. They want you to have the best quality air in your home possible. And that it not only makes your life more comfortable, but it adds to the longevity of your home too. And when your air is properly conditioned and the humidity is regulated, your home is going to thank you. You know, your sheetrock and your joists and rafters will thank you for this. So, but they work with trained systems. They are all about preventative maintenance too. They're they want your systems to last, and they want you to be operating at peak efficiency, which is why it's a great idea to get Brown Refrigeration out for a visit to your home at least once or twice a year. It's a very simple visit. They're going to look over your system. They're going to basically do a diagnosis, and just like you would go to the doctor, for a checkup, they're going to check over your system. And if there are issues, or maybe if there are things to be concerned about, they can point those out. And if it comes to a replacement, they can give you some heads up. Or, if maybe there's that catastrophic incident where you have to have your HVAC system replaced, and maybe you weren't totally prepared, they have great financing as well. They have really, really excellent financing that makes the process easy. And the trained systems that they use and the Remy Halo system they use are so energy efficient. Over the years, they're going to pay for themselves. We love Brown Refrigeration. They have Larry has built himself a great company, great business culture, and they answer their phones. So get in touch with Brown Refrigeration. You can call them directly at 901-362-1881 or go to their website, brownref.com. All right, Max.
And now, great moments in building history.
I wonder if there's anybody out there that has not heard of the Parthenon. If you haven't, if maybe the name doesn't ring a bell, you've seen it. I dare
Not
say.
Nashville.
Yeah, the Nashville is a replica, obviously. I wonder how specific a replica it is, because one thing that's cool is that as we unpack this, Alan, you're gonna tell us the Parthenon isn't all what it seems. There are optical illusions. There are many things involved with the Parthenon.
I just wanted to throw out some stats real quickly before we get started.
Okay.
The Parthenon was used 13,400 stones to build a temple at a total cost of about 470 silver talents, which was roughly about $7 million today, which actually isn't too bad.
No, I mean, when you look at what, so it took 15 years to build.
That's a pretty good return.
It was completed in 432 BC, if to do the math backwards. But Alan, let's talk about the Parthenon, man.
I'm just going to start with two words. Still standing.
Yeah. Now, I'm not promising anything I built is going to be here 2,400 years later. I mean, my warranty expires at some point. So,
well, let's see. The original Parthenon did get destroyed.
That's what I was about to say, the older Parthenon.
Wait a minute. Whoa. What?
This is the Parthenon is Parthenon V2.
Interesting. When
did the original Parthenon got took out during the Persian Wars
in 480 BC?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So there were the big Persian Wars.
But this one,
you haven't seen any movies about those Persian Wars,
right?
Yeah, you haven't seen any movies about those. The Parthenon was a victim of about 30 years after the Persian Wars. Of everybody there went, we're going to be very pragmatic. Let's clear off the old foundation and let's make it bigger, prettier, and grander than before.
Okay, can I ask a question? So, because this is you just said it right there. So the one thing I've always been curious about with the Parthenon, and I didn't research it enough. I hope you know the answer. When you look at it, so basically the Parthenon, we've seen it. It looks like this classical structure. But it's on an elevation. It almost looks like a hill or a mountain that you literally just shave the top off. You chop the top off.
That's exactly what they did.
They did. That's because it doesn't look like a natural elevation. It looks like they flattened it out so they could make this city headquarters or whatever.
So you could see who's coming.
Right. Because it is like sort of it's visible from, long distances. But so I guess I'm thinking just from a landscaping point of view, this was a lot of work just to get the land ready for
Yes.
it, right? Okay.
Yes. And the one thing they did a really good job of was the foundation. So, if for no other reason, why would we want to talk about the Parthenon? Let's talk about foundations. You are very correct. This is a great example of proper preparation of the site.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of work. And keep in mind, they don't have calculators. They don't have cute little levels with little bubbles in them. They got glasses of water and they got rocks on strings.
Well, we've talked about it in the past. If you could be out in the jungle, and if you have a vine and a rock and some basin of water, you can make a level. You could make perfect horizontal and vertical lines. So,
And so
they were obviously doing something like that.
Yeah. Now, if you go to the internet and look at a picture of it, you're basically looking at a mount. Okay, just a normal rock formation, basically kind of a mesa from our point of view in the United States. It's a little bit flat on top. It's got some rock walls going up to it. So, as a fortress goes, it's hard to approach.
I was going to say it looks defensible.
As a lookout point, you're up on a nice high plateau, so you can really see out around you. And basically it was just an act of spite to tear it down the first time because, well, you guys built this really great thing. We don't like it. We're going to knock it down.
Right.
So 30 years later, the, lovely people of Athena went, you know what we're going to do? We're going to build it bigger and better. And they went in and put a foundation on top of the original foundation.
Oh, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
Kind of exactly. And that is a little bit of the secret of why we still have it today.
Did you say?
I was going to say something even more of a big flex to the people who are like, we don't like it. What they depicted on the Parthenon itself is them defeating people. It's like, well, you don't like it? Well, we're defeating you. We're going to depict it, and we're going to build something better.
All the murals across the top are them, all of their battles and the victories.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely a hooray for our side.
Can I say one thing? Because this is interesting because it reminds me, okay, back when I grew up in Chicago, there was a point when the Sears Tower, which is what I'm always going to call it, even though they changed the name, was for a number of years the tallest building in the world. And, it's fairly flat when you are pulling up to Chicago. So you could, depending on where you're going, I remember, coming home and you could be 30 miles outside of Chicago and you start seeing the Sears Tower. It's like, oh, there's Chicago over there. I get the sense that this is the same concept. It's like, oh, okay, here we go. There's the Parthenon. And like you said, Max, it's kind of a flex. It's just, this is,
And the Acropolis was literally like the focal point of the city. It wasn't the beating heart like the Agora, but it was like the center of like religious activity. And so it's like, if you wanted something done, you went to the Parthenon.
Okay, but the Parthenon's a temple, right?
Yes.
Maybe we should at least...
Well, it was many things over its life. It was originally for Athena.
The goddess of wisdom.
Okay.
And war and a few other things. So here we go. We've talked about the foundation, and it is a good, solid, flat. And if you look at it and take a modern level to it,
I bet
keeping in mind,
yeah,
they didn't have modern levels back then. What they would use are like cups of wine.
Mm-hmm.
And if you filled it all the way to the rim so that the wine was like bubbled up around the edge and that glass would sit flat and it wouldn't spill,
right,
you were level.
Hey,
you talk
you
about
could put a board across it and start extracting from there.
Yeah. So now the original Parthenon, the one we know today, is Greek marble, and it's
working with marble too. That does not sound easy.
And marble is marble has a lot of interesting properties to it, and one of them, if you're a chef, I was going to throw something in like that, is marble has a tendency to be slightly cooler than the air around it.
So when you're living in Greece, it's almost like built-in air conditioning.
Exactly. And so here we go with our Doric columns, which are what those are called.
Yeah.
And they are carved and we'll talk about them a little bit more when we come back.
And you know what? There's no mortar holding those babies
No.
in. So lots of engineering marvels here to talk about. And we're with the Parthenon, and we're going to do it when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
What kind of place is this?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. And especially if you want to chime in or on any of the conversations we've had today. At the moment, we're in the middle of a really interesting discussion about the Parthenon. I'm sure everybody's seen it. Although sometimes it's easy to confuse some of those structures because they do have a similar architecture.
And it's not the Pantheon.
Right. The Parthenon in Greece, built in, completed in 432 BC, made of solid marble. We were just getting ready to lean into a little bit of the construction. And we also don't want to fail to mention that there are some optical illusions here that required some serious engineering. I mean, this is, there's things you look at it and, it looks like one thing, and then when you measure it and look at it scientifically, you're like, wait, this isn't at all what I'm looking at. So, but anyway, but you talked about it being made of marble, which to me seems like a very difficult material to work with. We should say, too, this statue of Athena, the statue inside of the Parthenon is 38 feet tall.
Yes.
So the height of the Parthenon has to be at least, 60? How tall is the...
Yeah, it's... Well,
it's
how
pretty
tall
tall.
is it? That is a really good question because of... Let's start with, what shape is it?
Well, it looks like a perfect rectangle.
It looks like a perfect rectangle.
But
Looks
we know
are
better.
so deceiving.
Exactly.
Because there are practically no straight lines anywhere in the Parthenon, and there are no right angles.
Which, people might say, wait a minute, I'm looking at it. It looks perfectly square. It looks perfect.
It looks that way, doesn't it?
Right.
However, because of the way they played with your eye, if you were to look at something extending into the distance, it would be small. It would be wider at the bottom and smaller at the top, like if you were looking at a road disappearing down
into the horizon. Right.
It looks like it becomes a sharp spear, right?
Okay.
Well, knowing that your eye is going to do that, well, I'm going to make some of my column pieces slightly fatter than some of the others, so that I'm going to give your eye the illusion that my column is perfectly straight all the way up.
Okay, go ahead. Because I've got thoughts about all
this. And we're also going to
this.
lean them in just slightly.
Well, I saw a video that demonstrated it, and they said basically, so, if you look at the Parthenon, there's how many, what is it, like 60? There's a bunch of columns holding it, wrapping the building, and that supports the roof and everything. Well, they showed, and it's a rectangle shape, and they showed that if you were to just take these columns and extend them up into space and keep going, they taper to where they almost form a pyramid. Now, you'd have to go up into space a good mile or so, but at some point, that angle would... Okay, well, for one thing, like you said, why do that? It's to create an optical illusion. But in a sense, I guess my question is, you're basically creating a trapezoid, which when you're talking... Okay, I know structurally a trapezoid has to be stronger. However... You're talking about a column that's, 50 to 60 feet tall, and you're putting a slight angle on it. That does not sound easy to me.
It is not.
It sounds like a real pain, man. It's like...
But think about putting up a tent.
Okay.
All right, so we have actually used a tent before as a great moment in building history. And the secret to a tent is that basically gravity is trying to get at least half of your tent to fall down, and half of your tent is pulling away from each other. And that is what makes a tent stand.
Okay.
It is the balance of how the poles and the pressure and gravity work. Well, these optical illusions not only make you think that you're seeing a perfectly straight roof, but all of these little tricks also apply to the strength of the building. So the fact that they're not perfectly straight and slightly bent in, like a tent, give them strength in a seismically not so quiet area.
Well, I was about to say, okay, there's got to be seismic, there's got to be earthquakes that they've lived through, volcanic things. There's got to be wind up there. So if this helps fight against those stresses, I guess that does make some sense. But also, I have a question because, okay, if you're at the Parthenon or even if you're miles away from the Parthenon, to see the Parthenon, you always have to look up.
Yes.
Well, does this make the Parthenon with this optical illusion look even taller than it actually is?
Yes.
Because let's face it, that's throughout history, that's what we're all about. Let's just make it as tall as possible.
Yes.
And okay. So it's another flex, like Max says.
Well, it is an attempt to create the illusion of perfection.
Okay.
So, here's the idea. How perfect is perfect? Well, perfect is in the eye of the beholder. So what we're trying to do is build a very impressive temple to Athena.
Right.
However, we're in Greece. We know we have earthquakes. We know we have floods. We know we have fire. We know
armies that'll invade.
We have all of these things. So there's an accumulation of knowledge, much like we have today in building codes.
Right.
So as you were an apprentice builder, you worked on other projects and you learned from every one of these projects. And then you get into a building like this, which is a glowing example of the height of what we could build.
Yes.
This is the it's a foundation on a foundation. Therefore, if the bottom foundation moves, the top foundation is protected.
There you go.
A technique we use today to earthquake buildings.
Hey,
having the columns that tiny little bit in gave them strength that a straight column wouldn't have.
Well, and like you said, it's still standing today. So.
And it's important to note, I'm not sure if I should save this for just a few minutes later, but a lot of the damage that occurred to the Parthenon, that the reason we see it as it is today, is not because of earthquakes, but because of humans.
Right.
Yes.
What do you mean by that, though? Was it?
Would you like me to just tell you now?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the Parthenon has changed many hands. It was converted in the 6th century to a Christian Byzantine church. And then when the Ottoman Empire came in around 1458, it became a Muslim mosque. Eventually, though, in 1687, this is where a lot of the damage occurred because the Christian Holy League wanted to try to take back the Parthenon from the Ottomans, who had converted it into a munitions depot and shelter. But that place was far from safe. And so when cannonballs bombarded the Parthenon, the ammunition stores would explode and cause death and destruction.
So it wasn't a flaw of the architects. Once again, it's
right.
People fighting with each other.
Right. What you have here, what you are looking at is the facade that survived up to 1640.
Right.
And still survived explosions and cannons.
That's another way to think of it. I mean, and okay.
Now,
yeah.
you really want to get into all of these, and it's not any one technique. So when we look at your modern house, and I'm looking at this building specifically, you and I both know houses move.
Sure.
You and I both know that when you take that into account, it's so much easier to get along with your house. And you and I both know your house isn't perfect. Nothing is perfectly straight. Nothing is perfectly round. Nothing is perfectly a corner. And all of these little things add up to the modern strength of a building.
Right.
I wanted to mention too, something we always speaking of houses and not perfect. Back in the 1970s, there was actually a pretty noble attempt on the part of the people of Greece to want to try to restore the Parthenon to somewhat of its glory, but not to its full glory, like to be like at Nashville. And so my question arises: is there a beauty to the fact that the Parthenon is destroyed and imperfect rather than fully intact? Is it best to keep it that way?
Well, that's your kintsugi argument, right? I mean, it's like, do you rebuild it? And I don't know. I don't know how I'd feel about rebuilding it because the story, when you go to visit the Parthenon, the history is right in front of you. You're like, okay, well, there's where the cannonball went through. There's where the earthquake happened. There's where whatever, but so for its purposes, I suppose at this point, I don't know that I would. It'd be like, pulling up the Titanic and rebuilding it or something, I don't know. But I did have a question real quick, Max, and I'm looking at you because you're the philosopher in this group. One thing about the Greeks, especially, I mean, they've influenced our country. They influenced the forming of our country. They were all about elevated thought. And when you look at the Parthenon and some of their other structures, you look at how well done architecture can inspire thought and everything. Was the Parthenon around the same time as Socrates and all the great thinkers back then?
It was around during the time of Pericles, who was a great statesman. And so he was Pericles was more of the guy who was the father of Athens. Socrates was more along the lines of he was like the teacher of Plato, and he lived around 399 BC.
Well, it's just interesting when you look at these historical figures and the architecture that they lived among. It's just something. I feel like there's a connection there. In some
Although
ways.
a lot of their work was done in the Agora, which was the heart of the city, as opposed to like the religious center of the city, which is the Acropolis / Parthenon.
This was a street level philosophers there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yep. It's worth a deep dive, though. It's really interesting to see. And I guess I'd be curious. I've only seen the outside of the Parthenon in Nashville. I guess I'd wonder how that holds up. If somebody out there has seen both, if you've been to Nashville and you've seen the actual Parthenon, I'd love to know how you compare the experiences. But anyway, that's our great moments in building history this week. The Parthenon in Greece. We have a lot to get to, Alan. We're not going to get to it all. I've already come to terms, but we're going to make an attempt when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
You may feel a slight sighing.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio, coming to you from the Brown Refrigeration Studios. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Alan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. You can call or text us at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline at 901-683-0989. We've discussed quite a bit today, but hey, you're free to send us whatever messages you want, as long as they're tasteful.
Send us some kudzu pics.
Yeah, exactly. So, but also pictures are very well appreciated. And even, it seems, as far as I can tell, you can send little video snippets. We had one of our dear listeners a few weeks ago send us a Ring doorbell footage of the possum that was invading the back porch and everything. So anyway, so it's all out there on the table. And of course, if you get in touch with us too late, we can always bring it up next week. But we have a lot to get to, Alan. Before we get to that, though, we would be remiss if we didn't if we didn't talk about our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. Just talked to Jay this week, and the fun thing about Jay is you never know what he's gonna whatever he's gonna call you about, but he seems like he's always doing something new and different, which is one of the things we appreciate. Of course, Big M Roofing and Remodeling is exactly what the name implies. He is, for one, he's a Master Elite installer. He's a GAF Master Elite installer. Jay is one of the top-rated roofers and remodelers in the entire Mid-South. If you go to the Better Business Bureau, you're going to see his rankings, and he is just about there at the top. And that's because Jay has created a great business culture once again. He does it all. He's all about the exterior protection of your home, and he does like to do interior remodeling as well. But these windows and siding and gutters and roofing systems, that's exactly what they are. They work in harmony together, and they have to be installed correctly. They have to be working together to protect the outside of your home. And the other thing that makes Jay stand apart is the fact that he is a former insurance agent. Jay has all sorts of expertise when it comes to discover. If you have a damage to your home and you're wondering, I wonder if this is covered by my homeowner's insurance, don't call your homeowner's insurance first. Call Jay. You need an advocate in this situation. Jay will come over. It's a free consultation. He'll look at the damage that you have, and if there is a path forward, he will let you know, and that's a pretty exciting prospect. But when you do these things out of order, you're setting yourself up for failure because your insurance company is not interested, and you really do need an advocate. And there's a lot of things that you may not even notice that your home improvement expert will notice. It's interesting, when Jay came over to diagnose the roof at my house, he had his technician. He got up on the roof and he busted out all of this chalk. He had pink chalk and red chalk and yellow chalk, and he was marking these areas that looked fine to me, and he was pointing out all the damage. And by the end of it, it looked like a grade school playground, Alan. But that was because there was damage up there that I, as just the average guy, didn't notice. That's why you need an advocate. And I got roof replacement. It was very exciting. And Jay is just he brings a real energy and enthusiasm to every project. And if you're on the fence going, I don't know if he'd be interested in this project, think again. He loves most projects he's gonna dive into. So, and he always encourages you to call him directly, which is one thing we appreciate. But we love Big M Roofing and Remodeling. They handle just about every home improvement project you could want. So get in touch with Jay. You can call him directly at 901-484-5645 or go to his website, bigmroofingandremodeling.com. Well, this is the last you're going to hear about this for several months, but I'd be remiss if we didn't thank the people that came out to the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention last week. If you're new to Tool Talk Radio, you should know we run an annual event, the Memphis Comic and Fantasy Convention. It's a weekend celebration of superheroes, science fiction, pop culture. And Alan, we saw a lot of I saw a lot of new faces. We finally saw Robbie. Well, you've met Robbie before, one of our loyal listeners. We saw several listeners. You were set up there. Were they stopping by the booth getting some Tool Talk swag and everything?
I would love to give a huge shout out to the engineering department at the University of Memphis.
Oh.
You guys were a riot. Thank you. I've never felt so swarmed and stalked in my life.
Really?
Yeah. And another huge shout out to all of our buddies at Memphis Light, Gas, and Water that came out.
They've been great.
Yes. I got to talk to so many people from those two organizations' facilities. Honestly, it was all day long, people walking over, and I got some really cool questions.
Really? Like what? What's the cool?
Well, things that we'd talked about during the show, they would come over and go, I ran into one of those at.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, here's what we did because you said you did this. And so great conversations, amazing people.
It's fun when you meet because, doing this, you don't always have access to, you just wonder who's out there, who's listening or whatever. So, but it is fun when you get to see them in person and especially in a different context. The convention is unique, folks. It's fun. It's a really fun event. It's very hard to describe to people that have never been there, but it's a ball of energy that it's just and it's very, I would say, wholesome fun. You're getting people of all walks of life, every type of lifestyle, you could say, whatever, and they all get together and they just celebrate together and have fun for the weekend, which to my mind is the way the world should be all the time. But there was a lot of great people there. But I did want to say that I got into some conversations with fellow contractors during the weekend. And in fact, I even talked to some other convention organizers, and it just reaffirmed something we've talked about here on the show, Alan, which is it's funny the overlapping skill sets that come into play. I've said this before. I think carpentry and home improvement skills can translate into skills you wouldn't even think of, like writing. Alan, you're a writer. I think there is a connection between structuring a story, framing an outline, doing whatever, and execute and finishing something that you started. I think this convention, that the fact that I've had years of carpentry work and home improvement work really helped me set up the convention. For one thing, folks, if you're trying to imagine what this is, imagine setting up 80 separate booths in a confined space where there has to be traffic flow, and you have to fit everybody into place, and you have to organize the booths in a way that it has a feng shui to it, and organizing rooms. Well, that came right out of knowing how to read blueprints and how to organize a space, a construction site. So
I will say this: project management is project management, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
This past week, I cooked for 50 people. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, that's a project. And it's got to be planned, and it's got to be executed in order. And then you got to transport all of that. That's an entirely different project.
Yeah.
That, the day-to-day skills of proper tool, proper job, proper application, timely application of when to do it, when not to do it, because I find most people get themselves into trouble because they diverge. Oh, well, the TV's on while I'm cooking, or while I'm trying to, no, you got to manage a project. So I will freely say, whether it's a convention or cleaning the backyard, a project is a project. It needs a little bit of planning. It needs good execution and good timing.
Well, I would even say that. I'd even take it a step further. If you run a plumbing company, or if you're if you're a contractor and your daughter's getting married, and you're thinking, well, I got to go hire that expensive wedding consultant to map out the thing. Maybe you and your wife could do some of this yourself. Maybe you're more qualified to handle a project like this, or a party or something yourself, and don't underestimate the skills you've acquired over all these years. So, hey, Allan, to shift gears real quick. So that was my plug, and thank you to everybody that came out to the Memphis Comic Fantasy Convention. You're not going to hear about it for several months, but on that note, what's going on with Dark Oak Media? So,
well, we are mostly focusing right now on cooking.
Big surprise, yeah.
It is the season, so just pop over to darkoakmedia.com, and you can click on any of the variety of shows we've got going on. But right now, the big push, most of the questions I'm getting is all about cooking.
Yeah, well, no surprise there, and you may as well and tune in here on 98.9 The Roar every Thursday morning. 8:50 or so.
8:50 every morning. I surprise the morning crew with something from the food dude.
Exactly. So, but a great week. I'm kind of happy it's behind me, though. It's always nice when it's done. But we're looking forward to another stellar holiday season of Tool Talk Radio, but not now, because it's time to get out of here.
It is.
So on behalf of my buddy Alan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening to Tool Talk Radio, and we'll see you next week.